public hearing of February the 16th, 2023 to order. This meeting is convened by electronic means. As such, council members may participate in person or by electronic means. For council members participating by electronic means, please ensure your video is turned on and let the clerk know if you leave the meeting for the purposes of confirming quorum. Council members are reminded that in accordance with section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. If council members attending by electronic means lose connection during any portion of the hearing, we will recess the meeting until the connection is restored. If council members lose connection during the voting process, team members will get you back online quickly while we suspend the voting process. The contact information has been circulated to you. Members of the public can view the proceedings via the live stream and YouTube link, which will be tweeted out by @VanCityClerk. We acknowledge that we're on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and I do want to thank them for their generosity and their hospitality and the care and the love that they show the land that we get to live, play, and work on. And I would highly encourage everyone from time to time to take a few moments out of your day and try to unlearn the stuff that we've been taught and relearn, the truth of what actually has happened on this land. In case of emergency where we need to evacuate the building, I'd like to direct your attention to the two exits behind the glass doors. So if there's a fire or anything else, please calmly walk through those glass doors unless they're locked, and then break them down. But then right after the post, there's a couple of exits there. If these exits are obstructed, please direct your attention to the 4 exits in the chamber. And whatever you do not use the elevator, use the stairs. I'd also like to highlight that there is a defibrillator located at the very end of that hallway in case someone has a jammer. That's not on the script, by the way, jammer. I added that one. It is the technical term. So if you guys smell toast, put up your hand. We'll help you. Yeah. Is anyone even watching this right now? I don't know. Oh, they are. Oh, I'm sorry. This is off script. I'd also, we all have the giggles now. I also want to take a moment to recognize the immense contributions that the City of Vancouver's team members, they work hard every single day, and you make our place an incredible place to work, live, and play. And I'm so thankful. I've been totally wowed by all the people that work at the City of Vancouver. So Clerk, may we please have a roll call?
Mayor Sim in the chair. Councillor Carr? Not here. Councillor Kirby-Young?
Present.
Councillor Dominato? Councillor Bly? Councillor Boyle?
Present.
Councillor Fry?
Present.
Councillor Montague? Councillor Klassen? Councillor Meisner?
Present.
Councillor Joe? You have quorum, Mayor Sim.
Great, thank you very much. Before we begin, I have some announcements. The public may participate by speaking in person, by phone, or by submitting written comments to Mayor and Council. Electronic participation is highly encouraged as there are capacity limits within City Hall. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Speakers should also state whether they are in support or opposed to the recommendations and if they're a resident of Vancouver. Speakers may only speak once and should follow along on Twitter @VanCityClerk for updates on the progress of the meeting so they don't miss their turn to speak. Any comments on agenda items can be submitted in writing through our online web form at vancouver.ca/public-hearing-comments. This link will also be tweeted. Those speaking on behalf of other persons or groups will have 8 minutes to speak, and only if those represented are also on the line and must not be speakers themselves. Speakers who pre-registered with presentations are reminded that the public live feed has a slight delay. To navigate through the slides of your presentation, please say next so that the clerk may advance your slides. I also want to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including utmost respect for all genders. I remind Council that when addressing speakers and team members, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and will instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. A reminder that council's role at a public hearing is to be a quasi-judicial body, which means council is to only consider the merits of the rezoning application or heritage designation. Council members may ask clarifying questions from speakers, including the applicant, or technical advice from team members, but should save debate for after the close of the speakers list. After hearing from speakers, council may 1. Approve the application in principle, 2. Refuse the application, or 3. Refer the application to staff or team members for further consideration. Finally, if council does not conclude hearing from all speakers this evening, we will recess and reconvene the meeting on another date that I will let you know about once I find out. Yeah. Let's try to get through it tonight. All right. I will get. So we will reconvene the meeting on February the 23rd at 6 p.m. Okay, so the first item on the docket is rezoning 691 West 28th Avenue. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 1? No? Okay. The clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Stewart Howard Architects Incorporated to rezone 691 West 28th Avenue from RS-1 Residential District to RM-8A Residential District to permit the development of townhouse or row house. A building height of 11.5 meters or 37.5 feet and a floor space ratio of 1.2 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to the conditions set out in the summary recommendation. No correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing and up until 5 p.m. today.
Great, thank you very much. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for those on the phone or in person to speak at the end of the registered speakers list. Now we have Esther Yun, Planning Analyst for Rezoning Center Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability, here to present the application.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Esther, rezoning planner for this townhouse rezoning application. Council staff have a presentation prepared. Please advise us if you would like to hear it.
Can I move to waive the presentation, Mayor?
Yes, you can.
I second that.
Awesome. All in favor say yay. All opposed say nay.
Yay.
All right, the motion carries unanimously. So we've waived the presentation. Sorry, bear with me for a sec. So I would still ask this one, right? Okay, so are there any questions from council to team members or the applicant team, noting this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? No? Okay. We will now hear from the public. And there are no speakers. Okay, so if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445 before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. Right, so we will do this again. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445 # before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. One more time. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 # before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. Okay, so seeing that there are no additional speakers, no. Take a 5-minute break first. Got it. All right, so we will now take a 5-minute break and then to see if there are any more speakers. Okay. As few or no public comments were received on, oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry, I jumped the queue a little bit there, didn't I? So Clerk, do we have any speakers that have logged in?
There are no speakers on the line or in the chamber for this item.
Awesome, great, thank you very much. Seeing that there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. As few or no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. today, I suggest we now close the receipt of public comments and move on to the hearing closing comments, asking further questions of team members and to make a decision. Does the applicant have any closing comments? Great. Do team members have any closing comments?
There are no closing comments. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does council have any questions for the team? No. Council will now make its decision on this application. Do we have a mover for a recommendation? Great, thank you. Okay, so moved by Councillor Clausen, seconded by Councillor Dominato. It has been moved. Oh, I already said that. Is there any debate? Oh, great. Okay, so let's go to the voting panel.
Vote assist in favor, please.
This is Councillor Boyle. I also need a voting assist in favor. Thank you.
Okay, did we get everything? So that was Councillor Fry, Councillor Boyle, and Councillor Kirby-Young. Is council? She was just here. You just mark her as absent. We can, it'll still, oh. All right, it passes unanimously. Congratulations. Awesome. All right, let's, the next item on the docket is CD-1 rezoning 8029 to 8225 Oak Street and 1012 West 64th. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 2? Okay, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Arno Martis Architecture to rezone 8029-8225 Oak Street and 10112 West 64th Avenue from RS-1 Residential District to CD-1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of 2 residential buildings and 2 mixed-use buildings containing a total of 200 strata-titled residential units, a building height of 28.5 meters or 94 feet, and a floor space ratio of 3.25 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing: 2 pieces of correspondence in support, and 1 piece of correspondence regarding other aspects related to the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you very much. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Now we have Daniel Feeney, rezoning planner for Rezoning Center, Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability, here to present the application. We're just waiting for the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Daniel Feeney, and I am the planner for this rezoning application being considered under the Marpo Plan. Apologies, just going to advance the slide. My apologies. The site outlined in red is located on the west side of Oak Street between West 64th and 67th Avenues. The surrounding context consists of single detached homes as well as 8-story mixed-use buildings that are either under construction or approved by council. The site encompasses the majority of the block and is currently developed with 12 single detached homes which are occupied. Given the project involves site consolidation of 2 or more sites, the tenant relocation and protection policy applies, with eligible tenants compensated accordingly. The site is well served by transit and amenities, with bus service, bikeways, community centres and parks nearby. This proposal is being considered under the Marpo Plan. Redevelopment is guided by the plan, which anticipates an urban mixed-use node at this location. The site straddles 2 policy areas. The first policy area, which applies to the north portion of the site towards West 64th Avenue, anticipates 6-story residential buildings with a density of 2.5 FSR. The second policy area applies to the south portion of the site towards West 67th Avenue, anticipates 8-story mixed-use buildings with 3-story podiums at 3.0 FSR. Additional density may be considered if office space is provided above the first floor. Supportable density is based on urban design and public realm performance. In total, 4 buildings are proposed. 2 6-story residential buildings and 2 mixed-use buildings ranging from 6 to 8 stories. The application was submitted in June 2021, followed by a revised submission in November 2021. As considered within the plan, the applicant opted to include office space, bringing the proposed density from 3.10 to 3.25 FSR. The building height maximums are 67 feet for the residential buildings and up to 94 feet for the mixed-use buildings. The proposal includes 200 strata units, with commercial and office uses located in the mixed-use buildings. This mix of uses provides opportunities to co-locate spaces to live and work. The proposal meets the 35% family housing mix requirement. Parking and loading is from the lane. As anticipated within the plan, density and height is concentrated toward the West 67th Avenue and Oak Street node, with 8-story buildings that then taper to 6 stories towards West 64th Avenue. A 3-story podium connects buildings C and D. The podium is set back from the street, lower in height, and lighter in material expression. To reduce shadowing and massing, each building steps back above the 4th floor. This design feature also provides a transition to the lower-scale residential area to the west. As seen within the site area outlined in red, the proposal incorporates a number of public realm improvements, including a mid-block connection between buildings B and C, a commercial plaza fronting buildings C and D, and a landscaped amenity area between the residential buildings A and B. These improvements provide opportunities for gathering and outdoor seating and aim to enhance pedestrian connectivity within the area. Within the landscaped amenity area, there are 5 large mature trees proposed for retention. Overall, the proposed form of development is compliant with the plan. A total of 15 submissions were received during the virtual open house. Comments were for height, density, and neighbourhood fit. Support was expressed for the architectural design and at-grade retail space. Concerns were related to height, impact on shadowing, increase of traffic, and loss of trees. In terms of public benefits, the applicant is offered a cash CAC of $16.5 million, as well as a DCL and public art contribution. In conclusion, this proposal is consistent with the MARPO plan, and staff support the application subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions from council to team members? No. Is the applicant oh, sorry, Councillor Montague. I did see that. You're up.
Thanks, Mayor. One quick question. In one of the slides there, you showed I think you called it a future context across the street on the other side of Oak Street.
Yes.
I'm just trying to recall, that's a development that's already under construction, is it not?
Correct. There are two anticipated developments nearby on the southeast block of Oak and West 67th. There's a 8-story mixed-use building with a density of 3.0 FSR. I think there's some land development site preparation at the moment. I don't believe construction has officially begun yet.
And that's south of 67th or north of?
North of 67th, just across from the gas station.
Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to visualize it.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any other questions for the applicant team? Seeing none. Sorry. Is the applicant team here to speak to the application? Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions from council to team members of the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? Going. Okay, we will now hear from the public, and I believe we have speakers here. So the first speaker would be Declan Hodgkins. Declan, are you on the line? Declan?
Are you able to hear me? I'm on the line.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. My name is Declan Hodgins. I live at 8645 Kremlin Street, quite near the proposed site, and I'm speaking in support of the application. And the reason I'm speaking in support of this application is quite simply that I think it's just a classic example of the exact type of densification that we need in the city, especially along corridors like Oak Street. Quite simply, I'm a 25-year-old. I live in this city, and I love this city, and I'd like to be able to stay in this city and put some roots down. And the reality is that our city has a massive housing supply problem, and developments like this are chip shot opportunities to make small contributions towards ameliorating the housing supply problem we have. I think it's clearly a well-conceived and architecturally pleasurable development. I mean, people can have concerns about the height all they want. I mean, the reality is we live in a big, growing global city with lots of people wanting to move here. You don't want height, you don't want shadows, you know, you can move to Langley as far as I'm concerned. This is exactly what we need to be pushing. And this is what we need to be able to attract young people like myself to be able to actually afford to stay in this city. So I just want to speak overall in support of it. I think it's very easy to listen to NIMBYs and naysayers, but we need to get to yes on this development, and we need to get to yes on a lot more developments a lot faster than we have been in the past, and I appreciate everything council's already working towards on that. So I'll conclude my remarks with that, and I hope you vote in support of this application.
Great, thank you, Declan. I do not see any questions from Council. And that's the end of our speakers list. So if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Okay, second time, sorry, and Clerk, we don't have anyone online, right?
There are no callers on the line and no one in the chamber to speak to this item.
Great, thank you. The second call, if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Okay. And no one else on the list? Or do we have one caller now? No? Okay. Third time, if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And so now I would suggest that we take a 5-minute recess to see if any calls have been received. speakers list is now closed. As few or no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. today, I suggest we now close the receipt of public comments and move on to hearing closing comments, asking further questions of team members or to make a decision. Does the applicant have any closing comments? Nope. Okay. Do team members have any closing comments?
Staff have no closing comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does council have any questions for team members? No? Okay, so council will now make its decision on this application. Do we have a mover for this recommendation? Great. Councillor Kirby Young, seconded by Councillor Bly. Is there any debate? No? Great. So let's go to the voting panel. Please. And are we still waiting for Councillor Boyle and Councillor Fry? Are they still online?
Sorry, Mayor, this is Councillor Boyle. I need a vote assist in favor.
Yep,
Thanks
thank
so
you very
much.
much. There we go. It passes unanimously. Congratulations. Awesome. Okay, the next one on the list is CD-1 rezoning 396 Southwest Marine Drive. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict on item number 3? Actually, I'm supposed to wait. Good. We're pretty good. Great. The clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by HDR Architectures Associate Incorporated to rezone 396 Southwest Marine Drive from I-2 Industrial District to CD-1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of 2 towers above a 3-story podium containing a mix of industrial and commercial uses, along with a turnkey 37-space childcare facility for city ownership. A building height of up to 79 meters or 259 feet and a floor space ratio of 4.63 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends the approval, subject to the conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing. 2 pieces of correspondence in support. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thank you very much. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1445 pound before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Now we got a Knight Rider ringtone going off there. We also have Scott Erdman, rezoning planner for Rezoning Center, Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability, here to present the application.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Scott Erdman, and I am the rezoning planner for this application on Marine Drive. The site is located in Marpole, on the southeast corner of Marine Drive and Yukon Street, across the street from the Marine Gateway development. The site is currently a car dealership and is zoned for light industrial. Blocks to the east and south are also zoned for light industrial, while blocks to the north and west have been rezoned in recent years for high-density mixed-use developments. The neighborhood is rich in amenities, with schools, parks, shopping, and services within close proximity. The site is well served by transit, with the Marine Drive Canada Line station and adjacent bus loop 1 block away. This proposal is being considered under the Marpole Community Plan, which was adopted in 2014. The plan identified this site as an intensive employment area for high-intensity job uses, with a density up to 3.0 FSR and heights up to 100 feet. In 2020, the Employment Lands and Economy Review Phase 2 report was adopted. This report identified directions to guide future planning for the Vancouver Plan and included quick start actions to intensify job space in key areas such as the subject site. It also allowed for consideration of additional height and density beyond the Marpole Plan for intensive employment projects that provide 100% job space. Further, in 2021, the Marine Landing Policy updates were adopted. These updates provide guidance for evaluating rezoning applications in the marine landing area, with directions for built form, public realm, transportation, and public benefits. All three policies together set out direction for what height, density, and uses can be achieved on the site. The proposal before you tonight is for an 11-story and 19-story building, with ground floor commercial retail spaces, stacked light industrial in the podium, and office uses in the towers above. The bylaw requires a minimum of 1.5 FSR for industrial uses, a maximum height of 259 feet, and density of 4.63 FSR are proposed. The application also includes a 37-space childcare facility to be delivered turnkey to the city as a public benefit. A virtual open house was held in November of 2021, with 23 responses received in total. Feedback included support for the proposed height, massing, and density, for the childcare facility, and for the addition of job space. Concerns included comments regarding the building's design and impacts to traffic in the neighborhood. This slide notes the public benefits accruing from this application, including a turnkey 37-space childcare facility, in addition to a DCL payment and a public art contribution. In total, the value is over $22 million. In conclusion, the proposal is consistent with the intents of the Marpole Community Plan, the ELER Phase 2 report, and the Marine Landing Policy updates for an intensive employment project with a childcare facility next to a transit hub. Staff recommend the application be approved, subject to conditions outlined in Appendix B. Thank you, Mayor and staff. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff and the applicant team are available for any questions you may have.
Great, thank you very much, Scott. Is the applicant team here to speak to the application? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council to the team members or the applicant team? Noting this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant. There are. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thank you to staff for the overview. My question, noting the ELER and sort of the Marine Gateway guidelines, but the rezoning of this land from the existing I2 industrial, the CD1 comprehensive. Can you provide some commentary in terms of the, I know you touched on it, but just a bit more perspective on the industrial that's retained on the site with the intensification? Because I know that we have a goal to not have a net loss of industrial because it's so precious in terms of the small percentage of land and yet the amount of sort of trade enabling uses it creates. So can you give us some perspective on that?
We'll respond to that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sean Martinez, planner in the Economic Development Planning team with citywide and regional planning. Thank you for the question, Councillor Kirby-Young. So with regards to I2, it does tend to get underbuilt typically before the rezoning policy went forward. So the 1.5 FSR that is required here it would be net add to what we would usually see in development in the I2. Currently, the site is a auto dealership, which is an underbuilding of the quite low with regards to the density on the site.
Okay, and what will we see in terms of the mixed use? Which component will be industrial and what type of use would that be?
I believe the 1.5 FSR on the bottom would be a mixture of uses that are compatible with the current I2 district schedule.
Okay, I understand the policy and the schedule, but in real life, in real terms, what kind of uses or services, trades, et cetera, tenants are we going to see in that? I'm trying to get some perspective of we're taking what's now sort of a car dealership site and what is industrial of today actually going to look like who's going to be in there? And if the applicant, I see the applicant there for the
I
applicant.
might defer to the applicant for that one.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm John Lugder with Hungerford Properties. We are anticipating at this point the industrial podium. It's a kind of a unified podium that's really focused on function and form. So it is going to be stacked industrial, but it is going to be focused on more of a health sciences sort of look and feel for those types of tenants, but also some small form distribution with some form of accessory retail on some of the grade units. And we've tried to size the units and the functionality of those units to kind of suit those mixed-use typologies and kind of higher forms of stacked industrial that we've seen that have been successful in Mount Pleasant and elsewhere, and so similar sort of uses that you'd see.
Okay, and that stacked industrial, because I know it can work for different tenants depending on who you put bottom, top, need for loading, et cetera. Is that strata or lease?
No, this will be all for lease.
It will all be lease. Okay, great. Thanks. I'm going to leave it there.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mayor. I wonder if you could just describe for me, I think there's some inclusion of community gardens and community food market. What were the plans around that?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Carr. I'm going to defer to my colleague, Caitlin Dorward, in social policy, who will respond to your questions about food assets.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. This is Caitlin Dorward from Social Policy. Just making sure everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, so this rezoning triggers the Sustainable Large Site Development Policy. So it requires 3 food assets to be delivered on site. We're expecting the food assets to be an edible landscaping and 1,200 square foot community gardening space. This will be on the podium level and it'll be accessible to building tenants. A community food market space will be planned on at grade. This will be also equipped with some electrical infrastructure that'll enable this space to support a broader range of programming, such as smaller events, vending, or food trucks. And then we're expecting a third food asset, potentially an on-site organics management system or another asset that would meet the intent of the large site policy.
Okay. Great. I'm sorry. Are you differentiating between food trucks and actual sale of produce? Like, I wasn't quite sure.
Sure, yeah. So a community food market is a small scale market that's intended to fill gaps in produce access, either in underserved areas, or it can provide an opportunity for lower cost produce access. They're typically operated by nonprofit organizations. And we felt as staff that this location wasn't necessarily suited to a traditional community food market, given that it's mostly for the business uses that are going to be there. But we wanted to explore this being kind of a multi-purpose space. So potentially for a community food market where vending of fresh produce could take place, but it would also be equipped with other infrastructure to support things like food trucks. So the combination of the two is what we're counting as one asset.
Great. Fantastic. And one last question, which is around the cyclist facility that's mentioned in the report. And I'm wondering if that is a cyclist facility for people who, like tenants and people who work in this space, or is it also accessible to the public?
It's meant to be a facility that is going to be entirely used for the employment and the tenants that are there, and focused on end-of-trip facilities, lots of extra storage that's there, meeting all the requirements that the city needs for the site.
Encouraging cycling, not cars, right?
Correct. We're actually have been exploring with staff a way to get bikes in a very innovative way down into the parkade level where the end-of-trip facilities and storage would be, so that you're actually not even having to get into the actual building or commingling access with pedestrian vehicles. Or
That's
sorry,
great. Thank
passenger
you.
vehicles, sorry.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That's it for my questions, Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Carr. Okay. Seeing no other questions, we will now hear from the public, and we do have speakers on the line here. So the first speaker we have is Charlotte Luthwaite. Charlotte, are you there? Oh, sorry. You're here.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all in favor of the CD1 rezoning application. As through city policy, this development will be required to include a community benefit agreement throughout its lifespan. My name is Charlotte Luthwaite. I'm the current manager of community benefits and partnerships at Social Canada, as well as the former COO of Clean Start Property Services, a social enterprise and supportive employer in the downtown east side. Social Canada believes that every purchase has a social, economic, cultural, and environmental impact. We are a social enterprise that promotes social procurement, which involves the intentional inclusion of social value in current purchases and construction projects. Social procurement is a means to leverage community value from existing purchasing. We are pleased to be supporting the successful implementation of 2 CBAs in Vancouver, New St. Paul's Hospital and 150 West Georgia Street. There are 2 paths to implement social procurement. One is the purchase of goods and services, and the other is through community benefit agreements. The application of the Community Benefit Agreements Policy, also known as the CBA, to the redevelopment of 396 Southwest Marine Drive presents an opportunity for this council to achieve real community outcomes that will lead to a more resilient and inclusive economy. For context, the CBA policy was developed in 2018 and applies to development projects that exceed 45,000 square meters. The implementation of a CBA requires all parties to collaborate, developers, subtrades, communities, and the city, and work towards the common interests of the local community and economy that it exists in. CBAs are a tool to achieve community economic development, and their objectives are threefold. Local inclusive employment. They require 10% of new entry-level jobs be made available to people in Vancouver first, specifically those from equity-seeking groups. The project must source a minimum of 10% of materials, goods, and services from social impact, diverse, or equity-seeking owned businesses. The project must also attain 10% of its materials, goods, and services from primarily Vancouver companies, and then companies located in Metro Vancouver, and then those within British Columbia. This council has been clear that they are prioritizing sustainable economic development and resiliency. So the application of the CBA policy on 396 Southwest Marine Drive is an easy first step to, as Mayor Sim himself has stated, enhance social enterprise and commercial opportunities for those local to our city. The CBA policy is currently being implemented, as I said, on the New St. Paul's Hospital development project. Since the project began in 2021, we are seeing encouraging results as all targets are being exceeded. 48% of new employees hired identify as being from an equity-seeking group. Of those, 19% are from the project's most local postal codes. For this one, that includes Vancouver's downtown east side. 30% of total project spend has gone to suppliers in those most local postal codes. And 16% of project spend has gone to social procurement, which includes social enterprises, diverse-owned businesses, B Corps, and living wage employers. The implementation of the CBA policy on 396 Southwest Marine Drive is an easy win for the development of a sustainable Vancouver economy. The CBA will mandate a fraction of the total project spend and hiring opportunities be directed to local, social impact, and/or diverse-owned organizations and individuals at no cost to any of the involved parties. This project will need to procure services and hire regardless of the CBA policy. So why wouldn't we ensure at least a minimum of those jobs and spend be allocated to our own local economy and untapped workforce so that this development can continue to benefit all of us long after its completion? Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Charlotte. You don't have any questions, so thank you. Great. The next person we have on the phone is Michelle Lackey. Michelle, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can. Michelle, can I please ask you, are you a resident of Vancouver?
I am, no, I'm in North
Okay.
Vancouver.
Okay, great. Thank you. Please go ahead.
So first of all, I'm glad I'm speaking after Charlotte because she gave you an excellent overview of the benefits of CBA and what it is. So thank you, Charlotte. And I just, good evening, I guess, Mayor, councilors, etc. I'm Michelle Lackey. I'm the Executive Director of Exchange Inner City. We focus on community economic development and creating better conditions for an inclusive and equitable economy. And I'm here also to speak in support of the rezoning application for 396 Southwest Marine Drive. And specifically, similar to Charlotte, regarding the inclusion of the community benefits agreement, which is in Appendix B. So it wasn't actually talked about here in the presentation, but it is part of Appendix B. And as we know, CBAs provide an avenue for developers to help decrease socioeconomic marginalization and increase reinvestment in local community when they meet the CBA targets: 10% local and inclusive employment, 10% social procurement, and 10% local procurement. We believe strongly, and I think that this new council is supporting this, that as a society, we need to support people across the economic spectrum, and CBAs enable the hiring of people with barriers, contracts with social enterprises that support equity-denying people, among other benefits. I'm bringing this up here today because I believe strongly it's the council's responsibility to ensure that its policies, such as the CBA, are implemented as intended, and I'm really happy to see that the CBA is part of 396 Southwest Marine Drive. Unfortunately, this is not the case with Granville Loops. I don't have the address, I apologize. The Granville Loops rezoning application, which was several months ago in the previous council, but that rezoning application did not include a CBA, even though it met the criteria. It was 45,000 square meters or larger. And just as importantly, this isn't criteria, but just as significantly, it's a city-owned property, and there's no CBA attached to it. So what I want to say here is, moving forward, I ask that all rezoning applications that are 45,000 square meters or larger consistently have CBAs attached. That is part of the policy. And that this process can be helped if ACCS staff are included from the outset of the whole rezoning process, from the very beginning, to ensure that the CBA is being activated appropriately, and that ensures that council has the opportunity to vote on the rezoning, knowing that a CBA should be attached to it because it'll be in the report. CBAs have to be applied consistently. Otherwise, they risk undermining, or not applying it risks undermining the value of a standard practice, ultimately reducing the intended impact of the CBA, which Charlotte spoke so well about. So I support the 396 Southwest Marine Drive rezoning specifically because of the CBA, and I just urge council that it always be attached, and if it's not there, then ask questions. It's 45,000 square meters. Where's the CBA? Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. You actually do have questions. Councillor Carr?
Yeah, thanks very much. I really appreciate you raising the issue of CBA. It's not something I caught in the application. I'm wondering if you can give me any background as to what you might know about how it came to be attached to the conditions of approval. Like, were you involved at all in that, or did staff reach out to you, or did it just happen?
Yeah. It's a great question. So since Granville Loop was not there, we have been working closely with
Sorry,
some of the staff.
Michelle, can we
Yeah.
limit our comments to the merits of the report being considered?
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just was going to say, thank you. I was just going to say that we work closely with some of the ACCS staff who've done a great job reaching out to the rezoning team to be able to have that conversation about CBAs. And so there's a higher awareness now. And so there is now more, my understanding, connection between ACCS staff and rezoning to highlight when a CBA needs to be included. And then we are also talking to ACCS to make sure that those are happening.
So did you reach out specifically on this project, or was it a more general outreach? Because I don't remember seeing a condition of approval that talked about a CBA before. So I'm wondering how recent this was and what your process was just what the process was, how recently.
I have a horrible memory, which is not what you want to say to council. But we did not reach out about this one in particular, but we have been in conversation about this one and others that either didn't have a CBA and should, and now they're working towards that. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. I understand. I can ask staff later at the end of the speakers about the process from their point of view. But I really appreciate you coming and explaining this for us. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Carr. And Michelle, thank you very much. Okay, the next speaker we have on the list is Saul Hashemi. Saul, are you on the line?
I am, yes.
Great. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Hello?
Can you hear us? Yep.
Okay, great. Yes, I am a resident of Vancouver. Great. And so I wanted to talk today in opposition to this proposal. I just am strongly opposed to any rezoning of industrial areas within Vancouver. There's just so little of that. And as an artist hopeful entrepreneur at some point maybe, I've had a really hard time finding, art space. And so I might have I did meet many of you who visited, I was just running to the phone, so a little out of breath. So I had met a fair number of you council people during a tour of an art studio I had in Royal Centre as an artist in residence through the Vancouver Mural Festival's project to put artists in spaces throughout the city that aren't traditional artist spaces. But doing that and then later, looking for art space after, I realized the importance of Class B artist space, Class B artist studios versus Class A, and how rare they are in the city and how important they are to preserve the ability for people to have these spaces. And so, while yes, this is currently a car dealership, I just feel that it's important that the rezoning doesn't happen, because the fact that the rezoning it actually impacts my ability to find a lease here. As I'm looking for space in this industrial area, or the one north that now is being redeveloped constantly by Hastings. I keep running against demo clauses where landlords or property owners will give me a 4-year lease, but then if they decide to tear down because of rezoning, then I'm going to get kicked out, just 1 year of notice. And so to then build up my artist studio and really build a, long-term base here in the city, to then, show in Portland, to show in New York, to show in Miami, to bring Vancouver's, cultural scene out into the world, and also to bring people to Vancouver, it's really impacted by this. So I'm just really strongly against this. and wanted to talk today about that. And let me just double check. Yeah, and I just think that, you know, to change industrial space into space for some food trucks, you know, I'm just unsure about that. And I think that this just needs a more thorough discussion and really careful thought. So that's everything for today. So thank you all.
Great, thank you very much, Sol. But please don't leave. You do have some questions. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, hi, Saul. Thanks for speaking to council. You mentioned the difference, the importance between Class B artist space versus Class A for you. And can you, you know, from your perspective in terms of art, can you just give us a description of why that needs to be located in industrial and what that actually means that you can be doing in terms of your craft?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a ton of Class A spaces throughout the city, and a lot of projects like 221A and their creation of artist studio spaces at affordable rates are geared towards Class A spaces, you know, which help some artists that, you know, work on a computer or use it kind of in an office space kind of way, potentially drawing, but even painting. Regarding like oil painting, sometimes ventilation systems, you know, aren't there, or it's difficult to install a sort of method for working either with traditional art materials or like sculpting and fumes. But then also power delivery for the building is really important, even if it's for photography for video or for ceramicists, you know, installing kilns. Jewelry artists working with torches, perhaps, or so there's just a lot of different processes that also can potentially make noise, you know, smells, and so I just, you know, don't see it possible for myself to work in a space around like the city, like 221A, you know, manages for artists. So it's something that I've been wanting to think about with other artists coming together to lease, you know, industrial space for a long term, so we can just take out that institution in between us or a landlord profiting and raising, you know, the costs for small artist spaces, and just do this, you know, ourselves as groups of artists.
Okay, so your point, and I take it, is really around the disappearing kind of more production style hands-on space. Okay. I appreciate that. Thanks for speaking, and thanks for the tour at Royal Center. Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thanks so much.
Great, thank you. Please don't leave though. You have more questions. Councillor Carr?
Yeah, thank you. Yep, that was a great tour at Royal Center. I agree. It was great. My question though to you is, I'm not seeing in the uses that are allowed here a prohibition of the kind of artist space that you're talking about. So I do intend to ask staff that question at the end of the speakers. But if I look into the appendix, it talks about the particular the particular uses of this space, which include manufacturing uses, which might include the kind of artist production space that you're talking about. Anyway, I'm not sure that I see a prohibition. Certainly the current space right now, a car dealership doesn't have any allowance for artist space. So I'm not sure if you know yourself if manufacturing uses, because this is industrial commercial zoning that is happening here. If you know whether or not the manufacturing component of industrial zoning does allow for the uses, the artist's uses that you would like to see?
Yes, so I do have a response to that. And I think the big thing here is that, while, sure, light industrial use in the 1.5 FSR, which is lower than the 3, you know, FSR that is currently the I2 zoning allows. So a new building could be a 3 FSR, and I'd be okay with that. But the problem is that by changing the zoning, it basically disempowers local businesses and artists who are seeking to have a stable long-term lease because it empowers developers and property owners to then put in things like demo clauses, in their leases, or to find ways of getting people, out to do these new comprehensive developments. So I just think the danger is there, and it personally affects me because I can't get a long-term lease here in this area because everywhere I look has a demo clause.
Yeah. Okay, I will follow up with staff on that. So that'll be after speakers, as I say.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Carr and Saul. There we go. So if there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Clerk, do we have any calls on the line there?
We're just checking with the staff. Just one moment. There are no callers on the line at this time.
Very much. Okay, second request. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And no callers? Okay. So we'll try one more time. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. So now what I suggest, if there are no calls on the line, we will go take a 5-minute recess.
Councillors, on the WebEx, we're about to start.
All right, great, thank you. So do we have any speakers online there?
There are no speakers on the line and no speakers in the chamber.
Okay, great, thank you. So seeing that there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. As few or no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. today, I suggest we now close the receipt of public comments and move on to hearing closing comments, asking further questions of team members, and to make a decision. Does the applicant have any closing comments? No? Okay. Do team members have any closing comments?
No closing comments from staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for team members? Oh, yep, there we go. Councillor Carr.
Thanks very much, Mayor. Yeah, just a follow-up to the questions I was asking one of the speakers. That is regarding the allowable uses listed in Appendix A. So manufacturing uses is one of those uses. I'm wondering if you could explain to me if that use would enable the kind of artist productions that the speaker was mentioning.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Carr. So in Appendix A, the draft CD1 bylaw for this site, among the permitted uses are cultural and recreational uses. And I can confirm that artist studio Class A and Class B are both permitted under that.
Okay, and he was asking about Class B, is that not right?
Both are permitted in the list of draft uses for the CD1 bylaw.
Okay, so Class B is the one he was concerned about. He said there's lots of Class A, but not very much Class B. That's great. Thank you. I really appreciate that clarification. That's it for my questions, Mayor.
Great, thank
I'm
you.
happy to move the recommendations.
Sorry, I cut you off there. What was that, Councillor Carr?
I said I'm happy to move the recommendations if there's no other questions.
Okay, looks like there are no other questions. So Councillor Carr has moved the recommendation. Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bly. Is there any debate? No? Okay, so why don't we put this to a vote then? And we're just waiting for Councillor Domino logging in. Great. It looks like it passes unanimously, so congratulations. And thank you very much. So 5 minutes, yeah. Thank you, everyone. All right, I think we can get started again. The next item on the docket is rezoning 1977 West 41st Avenue and 5688 Maple Street. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict on item number 4? Okay, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Sightline Properties, Maple Street, Ltd., to rezone 1977 West 41st Avenue and 5688 Maple Street from RS-3A Residential District to RR-3B Residential Rental District to permit the development of a 6-story mixed-use rental building of which 20% of the residential floor area is secured as a below-market rental units. A building height of 22 meters or 72 feet and a floor space ratio of 3.5 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to the conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing: 13 pieces of correspondence in support and 1 piece of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thank you very much. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be retweeted out and made available on the live stream. Now, we do have Helen Chan, rezoning planner for Rezoning Center, Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Helen Chan. I'm the rezoning planner for this application, which is being considered under the secured rental policy. The site at 41st and Maple is the first of 2 residential rental applications on the agenda tonight. These RR zones are new district schedules where all residential uses must be secured as rental units. Because this is the first RR rezoning being considered by Council, I will spend a bit more time on the policy background. The enabling policy for RR rezonings is the secured rental policy. The SRP encourages new purpose-built rental housing in Vancouver, aligning with the Housing Vancouver strategy. The SRP also aligns with the Vancouver Plan goal to create more complete communities. The co-location of local shopping areas and rental housing provides opportunities for households with diverse incomes to live in neighborhoods with access to shops, services, and amenities. Updates to the SRP were approved by Council in 2021 to support the addition of new secured rental housing in low-density areas close to public transit, shopping, parks, and schools. These changes to the SRP followed 3 years of extensive public consultation, including 10 public information meetings, more than 25 stakeholder and advisory committee meetings, and over 5,000 public responses from surveys and comment forms. Key updates included the creation of new residential rental zones, mapping, and a block-by-block refinement of eligible areas for the standardized RR zones. So this illustration, which is shown to the public during virtual open houses, illustrates building forms which allow for incremental change in low-density neighborhoods. The subject site proposes RR3B zoning. This is an example of the typology circled in purple. That is, the rezoning is for a 6-story mixed-use building located on a shopping street, which is shown in red. This illustration shows the intent of the SRP and RR zones to enable change in neighborhoods that at the moment are mostly detached houses and duplexes. The intent is to support new missing middle rental buildings and an evolving city streetscape. Other sites on arterial roads, which are shown in blue, may be eligible to rezone for 4 or to 6-story apartments. Sites on local streets adjacent to arterial streets may be eligible for 4-story apartments, 3 to 4-story townhouses, or a multiplex. Under engineering street classification, arterial streets function to move people and serve major bus routes, whereas local roads function primarily to provide access to properties. There are currently 28 in-stream rezoning applications for RR zones. Rezonings to standard residential rental districts have a simplified rezoning process. Instead of creating customized and negotiated site-specific CD1 zones, the RR district schedules establish clarity on permitted use, height, and density. The intent is to streamline reviews so that rental housing can be built faster. The RR zones also provide more certainty about what building forms may be permitted in low-density areas. The district schedules are accompanied by comprehensive design guidelines, which were also approved by Council. In this simplified process, architectural drawings are not required at rezoning. Drawings and the specific building design will be reviewed through a future development permit process when the neighborhood is notified again for public input and comments. This map from the secured rental policy shows sites that are generally zoned RS or RT, which are outside of recent community plan areas and are eligible for RR rezonings. The locations are based on close proximity to public transit and local shopping, and being on the first full block on either side of an eligible arterial street. The yellow star indicates the project site, which is on 41st Avenue near local shopping, as shown in red to the west. The SRP intends to support and expand local serving commercial opportunities. Because the site is at an intersection where the other two corners are zoned for commercial use, the SRP requires that the site be a mixed-use building. As shown in blue, the blocks to the east of the site are also eligible for RR rezonings. The subject site, outlined in red, is zoned RS3A and comprises 2 detached houses. Provisions of the tenant relocation protection policy do not apply to either house. The site is surrounded by similar residential properties on the north side of 41st Avenue and older 3-story apartment buildings on the south side. West of Maple Street, the C2 zoning allows for up to 6 stories for mixed-use rental buildings. Consistent with the intent of the SRP, the site, shown in red, is located near several parks and community spaces. To the west is Kerrisdale Park with an ice rink, running track, and sports fields. To the south is Kerrisdale Centennial Park and Community Center, which has a playground and a youth and senior centers. There is nearby shopping, and 41st Avenue is a rapid bus route. The RR3B district allows for a 6-story mixed-use rental building, of which 20% of the residential floor area must be below market rental. This zone further requires a minimum amount of commercial uses on the ground floor. The Housing Vancouver strategy seeks to deliver a range of tenures across the housing continuum. In the RR3B zone, the applicant must provide 100% secured rental units. Additionally, a minimum of 20% of residential floor area must be at below market rents. Shown in green are typical market rents for newer buildings on the west side of Vancouver. In comparison, shown in blue, the below market units target households with lower incomes. Under the SRP, below market rents must be 20% less than the average citywide rents as published by CMHC. The process for seeking public input on residential rental rezonings is the same as for CD1 rezonings. An open house was held last summer. 38 pieces of correspondence were received. Support was expressed for bringing affordable housing and below market rental units to Kerrisdale, especially given the transportation options and amenities in the area. Concern was expressed about the impacts of building massing, parking, and the loss of trees. In response to the concerns, staff note that the proposal meets the intent of the SRP. During development of the RR districts, staff analyzed apartment forms and gave attention to limiting shadowing as much as possible. Site-specific shadow studies, a tree retention strategy, and compliance with the parking bylaw will be reviewed during a future development process. The public benefits accruing from this application are the secured market and below market rental housing units. There is also a DCL contribution. The residential portion of the building is eligible for a waiver of the citywide DCL. The applicant will seek this waiver, which is valued at $1.1 million. The site was subject to a CAC review to determine amenity contributions generated by the project. Staff determined that the below market rental units offset land lift and no further CAC is due. In conclusion, this proposal meets the intent of city policy by delivering a secured rental building with 20% of floor area at below market rents. It also enhances shopping areas. Staff support this application to rezone to RR3B with the form of development reviewed through the development permit process. Staff and the applicant are available to answer questions.
Great, thank you very much, Helen. Is the applicant team here to speak to the application?
Hi, Mayor and Council. This is Jamie Vaughn from Sightline Properties. Yes, I am here to answer any questions you guys may have.
Great, thank you very much, Jamie. Are there any questions from council to team members or the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? We do. Councillor Carr.
Thanks, Mayor. I do want to ask a question to the applicant first. The question is this. This process is intended to be a more streamlined reviewing process by staff in order to get it onto the council's agenda for public hearing. What was your experience around the streamlining? Was it streamlined from your perspective? How was it streamlined? Yeah, if you could describe that process.
Sure, thanks, Councillor Carr. I would say that the process, I mean, it's certainly simpler from a drawing standpoint in getting all my consultants on board, because obviously that's just not required. I think the election definitely slowed things down because I think, and the Broadway plan, I think staff didn't really want to push anything through until that all happened. But we're approximately almost a year in from submission, so I think staff have done what they can. I think my hope for sure is that you would submit something like this and you get to a public hearing within, a couple months easily. And so I'm a big proponent of pre-zoning, which I'm sure you guys have heard before. And so if that was the case for this site, we could have a DP that was submitted last year and basically be under construction. So I do like the simplified version. I think it's been better. I think it can get better moving forward. But I think the intention is definitely noble and good. I just think there should be some, it'd be nice if there's some guarantees on just getting to council a bit quicker. But I know staff have a lot of applications, so it's kind of is what it is.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I'm just going to ask that same question to staff, so thanks very much. So staff, from your point of view, was this simplified process effective? Were there issues around the election or other things that were going on that made it a bit slower? And do you have a kind of ballpark around timelining a streamlined process?
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor Carr. This is Teresa O'Donnell, the General Manager of Planning. Yes, we hope to be able to deliver these with the same kind of speed as we have been doing the RM8s. Our timelines with RM8s are 6 to 8 months. We'd certainly like to pre-zone as many of these as we can. We'll be looking for opportunities to do that like we have on the RM8s. This was the first one. We're very excited about these RR districts. We've gotten great uptake since it's gone live. As Helen said, we've gotten 29 applications already, and I think probably 3,500 lots contained in those applications, so we're very excited about this. But this was the first one, and we do have a little bit of a backlog that we're working our way through, but hopefully by the time we complete that backlog, we'll be back to our normal processing times of about 6 months.
6 months, so that'd be half the time that it took for this one. About. Anyway, I did the math, so I'm good with questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Carr. Councillor Kirby-Young?
Yeah, thanks. I was going to ask a similar process, I think, of the applicant, and notwithstanding staff's answers around some of the other competing pressures and projects. From your perspective, what I heard, and I'm reflecting back, my question is that it might have streamlined some of the processes, but not time yet. Was that kind of a fair summary of it?
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary. I mean, I think I don't want to. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to bash staff and sit there and say that they haven't pushed this fast enough. I think obviously in our eyes everything can be faster, but we understand that there's backlogs. But I think the process, like Teresa said, is it's exciting to kind of have the ability to. I have RM8 sites as well, so it's exciting to kind of follow that same process and be able to get something into council a lot quicker than what would normally be the case.
Okay, thank you for that. And then a follow-up question to staff, and it was just back to the slide you had, the typical graph that you show with for the SRP projects, where it has the rent for the below market units and the others, and I haven't seen as big a discrepancy there. And I just want to clarify and reflect back that you showed the comparison of the below market starting rents for these units and then the newer West Side buildings, but the policy requires 20% below citywide average rents. Is that right? And the reason I just wanted to confirm if I have that right and that's correct is that I haven't seen as big a differential. I don't remember noting as much before between the market and the other. So is that just due to the citywide piece? I don't know if you want to go back to that slide.
While Helen's pulling that up, Graham, you want to go ahead and answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. Graham Anderson, Housing Policy in the Planning Department. So you're correct. The discount from market that we require for the below market units is calculated on the basis of a discount from the citywide average rents for all units. And the rents that we show on these slides for newer buildings is a different category in the CMHC data. So that's why the gap looks wider. It's closer to about a 40% discount if you look at the new average market rents.
Oh, okay. So it was based on the time at which they were pulled, because the new average market rents since the application was processed have now gone up. Am I reflecting back correctly what I think you're saying?
Just to clarify again, the requirement for the below market rents is calculated on the basis of overall average rents that CMHC reports for all units citywide. The new market rents that we show on this slide are reflective of a different category in the CMHC data that is reflective of units built since 2005. So those are typically higher. And so that's what's reflected for the geography on the data on the slide here.
And specifically
So
on the west side. So I guess put it another way then, one of the benefits of these buildings is that the below market rents, it's a much bigger discount for the secure rental units, affordable units that we're delivering on the west side than it might be, for example, for somebody who was living on an east side location. Like the savings is bigger relatively to if this building, the same building popped up on the east side is that a fair assessment compared to the market rents?
Yes, that's correct, as we do see typically higher average rents on the west side than on the east side, but the requirement is the same for all projects citywide for the below market rental rates.
Okay, so the takeaway is it's making more markets affordable for renters that need the help for the below market units.
That's correct.
In more neighborhoods. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, appreciate it.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Kirby-Young. Seeing no additional questions from council, we will now hear from the public. And we do have our first speaker in person, Carl Wood.
Five 688 Maple Street was built in 1925. It's 98 years old. It was built by my grandmother, my grandmother, and my grandfather. Just a quick little history. My grandfather grew up in New Brunswick, loved the ocean, joined the Navy, broke his leg, was discharged, and headed to Vancouver. My grandmother Rita, father from Ontario, made his fortune in the Klondike, not panning gold, but feeding the miners. When the rush ended, he sent for his family to meet him in Vancouver. My grandmother got a job at the railway. My grandfather got a job at the sawmill. Their paths crossed. They worked together. They courted. They married. They built a family. My mom and my aunt were born. They built a business. They achieved some success, and they bought the lot at 5688 Maple. At the same time, my great-grandfather, my grandfather's dad, moved to Vancouver. He was an architect. He designed the house at 5688 Maple and lived there with my mom's family until he passed away in 44. My grandparents lived there another 5 years until my grandfather retired. I get it. We need rental housing in Vancouver. We need density. My kids are in their 30s. I see what's happening. I understand the challenges. But if we abandon one set of values, being heritage and history, to achieve a second set, being density and rentals, it's a zero-sum game. My request to council is to find a compromise. I suggest Sightline find a way to incorporate the facade of the house at 5688 Maple into the design of the new building. I understand there might be heritage incentives that Sightline could use on this project or bank for another project. The building Sightline plans to build, as we saw in the earlier presentation, for 5688 Maple, I'll just rephrase that. The new building will face directly onto 41st. The current house at 5688 Maple sits on the back north end of the lot facing towards Kerrisdale Park, which you could see in the diagram, not interfering with the front presentation of the glass and concrete building they're planning to build. I understand there's a second glass and concrete building to be built across the street on Maple. Incorporating the heritage facade of 5688 Maple into the proposed building will preserve the heritage of the neighborhood, provide a counterpoint to all the glass and concrete that will be dominating both sides of Maple Street, and form a gateway to the traditional homes further north on Maple. Sightline may say it's not possible, but there are examples of this kind of compromise all over the internet. Sightline's principal states in their bio, Sightline holds itself to a higher standard of design. So maybe this would be a challenge, but they themselves say they hold themselves to a higher standard of design. The principal says he's overseen the develop of 3 million square feet of development, and he has 2 partners with similar experience. I would think 3 partners with 45 years of development experience responsible for 9 million square feet of real estate development, and their design teams could find a way to incorporate a small 2-story facade into the back corner of a 6-story development. The Sightline website states the development process is an opportunity for win-win partnerships that ensure everyone along the way is treated fairly. Regarding 5688 Maple, I don't think anyone's been along the way longer than my grandmother and my grandfather. You might think I'm stretching the words of Sightline, but it emphasizes in the last sentence of the corporate bio that its vision of win-win partnerships where everyone is treated fairly is a vision steeped in the past. So I'm asking council to give Sightline the opportunity to live their words. I'm asking council to consider my reasonable request to incorporate the front facade of 5688 Maple Street into the design of the new building. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Carl. Oh, Carl, can you please stay there? Thank you for sharing the family history of the house at 5688 Maple. You do have questions from Councillor Kirby Young.
Hi, Carl. Yeah, thanks for speaking. And I just have a quick question. You mentioned Sorry, you mentioned that this was your grandparents' home. I wasn't clear. Has this been out of the family for some time, or
It
did you
has.
sell this
It
property
has.
for a development?
Since the 50s, yes. We
Pardon me?
sold it in 1950, I believe. We
Oh, I see.
built it in 25 and sold it in 1950.
Oh, okay. I was just trying to understand the
Yeah, no,
context as
it's,
to whether or not.
there's no other connection there other than just family.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for speaking.
Great. Thank you very much,
Okay,
Carl.
thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker we have is, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Kibby O'Reilly. Kibby, are you online?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Please go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to call in and say I'm a renter in Vancouver, and it's really hard to find places to rent right now. And I understand the importance of maintaining some of our heritage homes, but right now I think we have a housing crisis, not a heritage home crisis. And I grew up hanging out in the Carousel area a lot, and I'd love to think that I could live there in the future, but it's just so hard to find places to rent. So I really think that this project is a good idea. I would like to see myself being able to rent in that area in the future.
Great. Thank you very much, Kibby. Seeing no questions for you, I'm going to move on to the next speaker online, and that's Sean Gallagher. Sean, are you there?
Hi there. Yes, hi there.
Sean, can I please ask you, are you a resident of Vancouver?
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Your Honor and Counsel. As a person who grew up in the area and still had existing parents that lived 2 houses away from this proposed development or change of use, I just wanted to call in and say that we deeply oppose this new scheduled rezoning for a couple of reasons. Number one is that 41st Avenue is not Oak Street or Cambie Street. What borders 41st Avenue is lots of smaller side streets like Maple Street that have many, many residential people, including my parents, that have lived there 40, 50, and 60 years. These are middle class, many of them, citizens who, in the case of my parents, have to defer their taxes, but moved into Vancouver, helped build this city in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, raised families here, and are still remaining there. So the actual footprint of this development worries us for a couple of reasons. Number one, this will be the first RR zone development in the area and the first multifamily zoned development on the east side of the north side of 41st, going all the way from Maple Street or Arbutus all the way to Kingsway. This will be the first multifamily development all the way up to Kingsway on that north side. The south side does have some older buildings, but the north side is still very much residential. And so this is a concern. Number two is the parking. With the next door development on 2001 West 41st, which is right across the street, we're looking at 70 units, total units within a few blocks of each other, that really with no real parking features other than this new complex across the street. In other words, this is, most of us on the street are for these are buildings. However, maybe use it in an existing, taking away an existing multifamily building. Don't put it side by side for another, beside a massive another development, bringing in literally hundreds of new people down these tiny side streets. So with no real parking zone for these RR complexes, putting it down a small side street and then next to another massive development which is going to house a daycare, 42 market rental units, commercial units. The footprint is too much for that particular area. So, and number three, I would just say the traffic and safety in that area. I'm sure council members know that there's a McDonald's there. They use a drive to get to the drive-through. You must drive through that back lane. There's a Salvation Army drop-off in that back lane. And my understanding for 2001 West 41st, the only area to access the parking garage on that one across the street will be underground. So you're having three major areas going through Point Grey School, all in a small back lane. I mean, are they going to be putting a traffic light in that back lane? My father is in his 80s in a wheelchair. We had to fight city council to get even a sidewalk put on Maple Street so he could access it. We're not talking about billionaires here. These are working class people that grew up and lived in the city. And I really believe this rezoning is a red herring so that they could fast track this development so that they do not require a site-specific CD district rezoning regulations. So we are supporting of RR3B rental units. However, put them in existing apartments, maybe run-down apartments or in higher kind of shopping districts, but not in residential areas where there's really not the footprint to support it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Sean. There are no questions. So now I'm going to put out a request. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1455# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Do we have any speakers on the line?
No further speakers on the line.
Thank you very much. Okay, so second call out. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And so, oh, there is one. Oh, awesome. One more. I think that's a first for me. Maybe not you, but. Okay. Okay, so I'll read it out one more time then, and then. Okay, so speaker, by the way, if you're on there, please hold on. We're trying to find you. In the meantime, I'm going to read out the request one more time. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And so now we will take a 5-minute recess and we'll try to find that caller. Okay, let's, so the next speaker that we have online is Benjamin Sampson. Benjamin, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Great, please feel free to get started.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that I really do support the increase of affordable housing, affordable rental housing in Vancouver. I partner with different organizations that sponsor refugees. And just to tell you a brief story of my week last week is I went to a basement suite apartment that was available for $2,200 to rent, and there were 41 applicants, and there are more coming. And we have really struggled to place different families from different countries in this city, people who want to come and want to work, people who are qualified. And so I really do believe we need more affordable rental housing in the city. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Great, thank you very much, Benjamin, for your comments. Seeing no questions for you, I will go to the next person on the list, or sorry, online. It's Allison Harbridge. Allison, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'm a mother of 2 little kiddos. We're a family of 4, and I live just off Dunbar, and we're in the Kerrisdale area all the time. And I think it is the perfect place to build rental housing for families. It's near Point Grey Secondary and amenities and transit. And we pay over $3,100 in rent a month, which seems crazy town, but it's actually a deal. And if we lose this place, we would really have nowhere to rent in Vancouver. So, yeah, I do think we need more rental options, and I do think it's a fantastic idea. So that's what I have to say.
Great, thank you very much, Allison. Seeing no questions for you. The next person we have online is Parm Nijar. Parm, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Right. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to say that I generally do support this fast-track rezoning district, the RR district. It's the staff has been working hard, and this first one in the pipeline just close to a year to get to this point. That's great, and I would also like to say that the concern the first speaker raised, Carl, about the heritage merit of this property. I really appreciate that, and it's these little stories that add to the rich history of our city. So if there's ways to preserve and incorporate them into these new modern buildings, I'm all for that. So, that's a great story and a great point there, Carl. And as far as the other speaker who's concerned about parking and additional traffic issues, thanks to, a development of this scale and the one across the street, I mean, we really need to be looking at more mass transit solutions that are easily available, that can get people moving in and out different parts of the city, more surface level rapid transit solutions, and not just car only. Right, that's not a sustainable way of going forward, the city and as population. And in terms of streamlining things in the rezoning stage, that's already being done here, and it would be really awesome to see that come down to less than 6 months. But I would also like to add the development permit and the building permit stage, they also take a fairly long time. So if something can be done to make things a bit easier for the developers there, that would be really appreciated by the local housing community, and in turn by the renters and the eventual homeowners for strata properties, because the carrying costs involved in holding these multi-million-dollar land parcels, it's huge. It all gets passed down to the tenants and or to the end homeowners, the home buyers. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time, and good evening to everyone.
Great, thank you very much, Parm. Clerk, do we have any additional speakers on the line?
No additional speakers on the line or in the chamber.
Thank you very much. As few or no public, seeing that there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. As few or no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. today, I suggest we now close the receipt of public comments and move on to the hearing. Move on to hearing closing comments, asking further questions of team members and to make a decision. Does the applicant have any closing comments?
I don't have any closing comments. I mean, I think we've spoken with Carl Wood before, and it is. I understand his recommendation and his idea, but yeah, that would be quite challenging. And I do want to elaborate on Graham's point that the 20% is a lot more than a 20% reduction in rent. So this is at least a 50% reduction in rent. So I think that's a huge win for the city. So I'll keep my comments to that, but I appreciate all the speakers' points.
Great, thank you very much. Now, I do apologize. Point of procedure here. Councillor Carr, are you on the line? And I noticed you're in the queue. Did I miss you?
No, you haven't. I would come after the applicant and staff speak. So I'm just waiting.
Okay, you jumped the queue. I was concerned that I missed something here. So
No.
great, thank you very much. Okay, on that note, does staff does staff have any closing comments? Having some technical difficulties here.
No closing comments, thank you.
There we go. Okay, does council have any questions for team members? And yes, I see the queue here. So Councillor Carr, you're up.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate that the applicant actually did address the question I do have, which is the feasibility of incorporating the facade of the older home, which I Googled in Google Maps. It's a very solid looking home, I have to say. But given that I can't ask questions of the applicant, I'm going to ask staff that question. I mean, were there ever any of these kinds of discussions during the review of this application before bringing it to public hearing? And what do you understand the challenges to be in incorporating the facade of the existing home?
Good evening, Councillor Carr. It's Marie Linehan, Senior Development Planner. We would agree with the applicant that it would be extremely challenging to retain this small wood frame house in conjunction with the delivery of a 6-story mixed-use rental building. It would limit the size on the site that was available for the new building, and it would add a lot of complexity to the project, which is not in keeping with the intent of the policy to streamline the delivery of rental. We'd also like to point out that in the base RS zoning, there is no requirement to retain character houses. And for the secured rental policy, we kept that practice in place. We did not introduce more stringent requirements around retention, again, because we did not want to limit the opportunity for new rental buildings. So yeah, we respect Mr. Wood's relationship with the house, certainly, but we would not seek its retention.
Taking this at a different angle, I know that the Vancouver plan talks a lot about our incorporating into the landscape the history the language and traditions of the First Nations people. I'm wondering, do we have, or have staff talked at all about the potential incorporation of the history period into the current landscape? This is, these kinds of houses here, photos, or I don't know, something that harkens back to the evolution of the city's landscape over time. Again, I'm just asking if this has come up as a conversation amongst staff.
I might ask one of my heritage colleagues to speak to that. There is an idea within heritage policies now to look to more intangible heritage assets rather than strict physical retention. So I believe that's a concept that was explored through Vancouver Plan. Because that would not impact the sort of form or size of the building, that's something we could certainly discuss with the applicant to see if there could be some references or information in the mixed use, in the commercial portion of the building that alludes to the site history.
Right. Okay. Yeah. If there's no heritage staff there to respond to that, I think your comment is an interesting one from my perspective, that it could be explored as something. We haven't done much of that in Vancouver, but it might be, as we evolve as a city, might be, I mean, other cities have done it. And you certainly see in Europe the retention of, a small facade within a much larger new, bigger building. So it just gives you a sense of the fact that cities evolve. Anyway,
Right.
I appreciate the fact that you mentioned that it could be a subject to be discussed.
Right, and I will clarify, Councillor Carr, that we wouldn't be seeking retention of the building, but we
I
may be
understand
able
that.
to, for example, photographs or something about the history of the
Mhm.
site.
Right. Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Meisner.
You can actually take me off, Mayor. I didn't realize this section was just for questions. Thank you. I'll save some closing comments.
Okay. Yes, let's move for recommendations. Councillor Bly moved, seconded by
Councillor
Councillor
Boyle?
Montague. Thank you very much. Is there any debate? Oh, okay, so I have to change over to the main queue, and so Councillor Meisner and Councillor Boyle, can you please go to the main queue and add yourself to the queue?
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who called in this evening. I understand the different perspectives, and it was very interesting to hear the story about the history of the property and some of the family history there. I am supportive of this project. It is close to the existing shopping area on West 41st. It's just on the other side of Maple. And also note that it's on the R41 rapid bus route. Which is actually the busiest, second busiest rapid bus route after Broadway. So there is pretty good transit access there, and I think that will probably discourage people from having private vehicles. So hopefully that'll mitigate some of the traffic concerns in the alley with the underground parking. But also, of course, the below market rentals that this project includes are desperately needed. I think we heard that from several people that called in family units in the neighborhood. So I think it's fantastic that we're going to get those. And also, I'm happy to hear about the rezoning process being a bit faster for these projects. I know we can tighten that up a bit, but this is good to see this sort of project moving through fairly quickly.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Meisner. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks so much. And actually, Councillor Meisner said basically everything I was also going to say. Appreciate the speakers, and really glad to see us moving forward with this secure rental, mixed income rental housing. It's particularly exciting to note, as Councillor Kirby-Young pointed out, the difference in rent for the below market units here badly needed, of course, across the city, including and especially in this neighborhood. I grew up right around here, very familiar with the neighborhood, the shopping district, the school there, and really glad to see more rental housing being built here. And again, like Councillor Meisner said, glad to see us moving more quickly on these projects, and really appreciated the mention of pre-zoning and continuing to look to how we can make building mixed income rental like this even faster because of how badly needed it is. So very supportive, excited to see this first of the RRs go through. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks. I'll be brief, and just the 2 points. I was really struck by the rents. I'm glad I asked that question because they are some of the lower ones that I've seen, and up to 50% characterized by the applicant, 40% by staff relative to people can't afford to purchase, but opening up sort of different neighborhoods in different areas across the city, I think was a really significant thing that stood out for me. And the second thing I'll say without repeating is that it's really helpful to hear about the actual process of public hearings like this, because it allows us, as we're working through streamlining policies and some of the permitting processes, to hear where the bottlenecks are so that we can try to minimize them, because we can have simplified policies, but we still need to move them through the system. So that's always a good learning for council, but I am happy to support the project. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much. I just want to add my support and just echoing what's been mentioned. So something that hasn't been mentioned is acknowledging how challenging it is to build rental in this area particularly. And it's very, it's got aged rental stock, but it does not have new rental stock. And so I think that this is critical, and a lot of that risk is taken on by the builder to sort of have that vision. And this builder in particular does a lot of good work in that regard. So just appreciating that. And also that there are a lot of entry-level jobs in this area where workers cannot find housing even close to where they work. And I happen to work and live in Kerrisdale for more than 20 years and know that that's always been a challenge in that area. So really happy to see that there is some new rental coming on market. And one thing that was said, but needs repeating, is the family size unit. So all that to say, I very much appreciate the speaker coming and sharing the story of his family and the connection to this site. And I think it's critical that we keep our mind to the historical nature of some of the communities in our city and the families that have lived here for generations. And I think those are very important voices to hear in these processes. So just acknowledging the speaker for coming and waiting and speaking to that historical fact. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Bly. Okay, seeing no other councillors on the queue, we will put it to a vote now. Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And Carl, thank you very much for coming on in. Thank you. Okay, we'll take a couple of minutes to start the next one. No, we're all good. Same group, same everything. All right. I finally followed the instructions and I was wrong. Okay, well, we're just gonna keep rolling then. Okay, the next and last item on the docket is rezoning 807 to 847 East 33rd Avenue. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 5? Nope. Okay. The clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Yamamoto Architecture to rezone 807-847 East 33rd Avenue from RS-1 Residential District to RR-2B Residential Rental District. to permit the development of a 5-story rental building. A building height of 16.8 meters, or 55 feet, and a floor space ratio of 2.4 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing: 20 pieces of correspondence in support, 22 pieces of correspondence in opposition, and 1 piece of correspondence regarding other aspects related to the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thank you very much. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And once again, we have Helen Chan, rezoning planner for Rezoning Center Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability, here to present the application.
Thank you. This application is coming under the secured rental policy. This is a rezoning to RR2B. This site on 33rd Avenue is the second residential rental application on the agenda tonight. Consequently, I'll be briefer in this presentation. The enabling policy is the SRP, which encourages new purpose-built rental housing in Vancouver. Updates to the SRP were approved by Council in 2021 to create RR zones and a map with eligible areas. So this application is for rezoning to RR2B. RR2B is an example of the typology circled in purple. That is, the rezoning is for a 5-story rental apartment building on an arterial street. I reiterate, RR rezonings have a simplified rezoning process whereby architectural drawings are not required. Drawings and the specific building design will be reviewed through a future development permit process when the neighborhood is notified again for public input and comments. This map from the secured rental policy shows sites that are eligible for RR rezonings. The locations are near transit and shopping. The yellow star indicates the project site located on 33rd Avenue, which is a secondary arterial street. As shown in blue, the blocks to the west and to the east of the site are also eligible for RR rezonings, with eligibility ending at Grays Park. The subject site, outlined in red, is zoned RS1 and comprises 4 detached houses. There are 4 rental tenancies, of which 2 are eligible for provisions under the Tenant Relocation and Protection Policy. The site is surrounded by similar residential properties on the north and south. Fraser Street, 1 block to the west, is also a secondary arterial street and has commercial C2 zoning that permits 6-story mixed-use rental buildings. Consistent with the intent of the SRP, the site shown in red is located near several parks and community spaces. It is midway between Kensington Community Centre and Hillcrest Centre. The site is within the catchment area of McBride Elementary School and Tupper Secondary School. According to Vancouver School Board's facilities plan, both schools are currently operating under capacity and are anticipated to remain so through to 2031. The RR2B zone allows for a 5-story rental building with a maximum FSR of 2.4. The Housing Vancouver strategy seeks to deliver a range of tenures and affordability across the housing continuum. Renting, shown in green, has lower monthly costs compared to homeownership, which is shown in orange. An open house was held last year. 147 pieces of correspondence were received. Support was expressed for the increase in rental stock and the appropriateness of its location near transit parks and commercial. Public concern was raised about the building massing, pressure on local parks and roads, impacts on community amenities, and the utility of a consultation process without architectural drawings. Staff note that this proposal meets the intent of the SRP to encourage rental in new areas and to streamline the development process. Specific site and building design will be reviewed during the future development process, where again, there will be another round of neighborhood consultation. The public benefits accruing from this application are the secured market housing units. There is also a DCL contribution of over $2 million. The site was not subject to a CAC review. The community amenity contributions policy for rezonings exempts certain lower density market rental applications that are 5 stories or less from paying CACs. In conclusion, this proposal meets the intent of city policy by delivering a secured rental building. Staff support this application to rezone to RR2B with the form of development review through development permit process. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer questions.
Great, thank you very much, Helen. Is the applicant team here to speak to the application?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Hassan Syed with Alabaster Homes, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have about the project.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions from council to team members or the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? Yes, there are. Councillor Klassen, you are on.
Hi, thanks for taking our questions. I know the area fairly well. There were some concerns that were raised from the community regarding particularly traffic that might be sort of coming back and forth from Durward Street. Durward is sort of this.
Why don't you get it better?
Pardon me? Okay. My question is that is the current plan to have traffic coming back and forth out of the Durward location? There's no parking on the site or under the site. Can you just describe just how we're going to deal with vehicle traffic around the building?
Design for the actual site layout. It's likely that the traffic will be coming in on the north side off of Durward. There will be offsite requirements to upgrade that entire street towards the intersection on the west.
Okay. I have a question with regards to the site itself. I noticed that over the last several months that one of the houses that was a part of the land assembly there was unoccupied, and I was just curious as to whether the properties have already been purchased in a pre-sale and whether they are going to be subject to our empty home provisions.
I believe we were between tenancies at that point, so we're going through some upgrades so that we can bring in some new tenants.
Okay. So presumably the homes would be occupied until we get to a development permit.
That's the intent, is to keep people in there as long as possible.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. And I did hear from staff that there was going to be a bit more community consultation going forward.
Yeah, I think Helen might be able to speak to that. It's through the DP process. When the application goes into the system and through the processing online, then there will be further opportunities for comments from the community.
Okay, very good. That's my questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Klassen. Seeing no other questions from council, we will now hear from the public. Speaker number 1 has withdrawn. So speaker number 2, Jonathan Waller. Jonathan, are you on the line?
I'm here, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
That's fine.
My apologies. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, staff. I'd like to preface my remarks by saying I think that the residential rental policy is a good one. I think it's something that's needed in the city, and I think increasing density is a very good idea. My concern with this project is not the fact that it's going to have a parking garage directly across from my house, so much as the traffic that's going to be added to East 33rd. My understanding, and I've spoken to Mr. Hassan, or to Hassan, sorry, not Mr. Hassan, my understanding is that the proposal is to have about 100 units, of which about 2/3 are going to be family units of 3 or more bedrooms. And parking spots, we were told, same thing you were told, Councillor Klassen, that they don't have everything finalized yet, but we were told they thought it would probably be about 2/3 of the units would have a parking spot. So around 65 to 70 parking spots. In addition to this development, along East 33rd, there's 2 other development rezoning applications that are currently underway. They haven't gotten as far as this one. At 1749 to 1769 East 33rd, which is 9 blocks away, there's another RR2B application for a 5-story building with a floor space ratio of 2.2. And at 4906 to 4958 Main Street, which is the corner of Main and 33rd, they're seeking a CD1 zoning to create 72 market.
Sir Jonathan, can I get you to limit your comments to the merits of the report, of the property?
Yes, this is relevant to this this development. My point is that these 3 developments, if they go ahead, will add about 200 units along East 33rd in about a 15-block span. East 33rd, I know it's considered an arterial road, but unlike West 41st that you heard about in the previous application, it's not a 2-lane road. It's 1 lane from Ontario all the way to Kingsway, and it only becomes 2 lanes at some of the intersections. It doesn't have a rapid bus route. It has a 33 bus, which is just a regular bus route. And in the rush hours, it already becomes very slow moving. It's very difficult to turn onto East 33rd from St. Catharines or Prince Albert, as it is now. And if we're going to add 200 cars, to East 33rd in 15 blocks, it's just going to become impassable. So I'd like to ask council if they've given any thought to widening East 33rd, making it 2 lanes all the way, or otherwise upgrading it or improving it to address the traffic. Because if you don't, it's going to become impossible to use if all 3 of these developments are added. In fact, my suggestion would be is if you're not going to upgrade East 33rd, you deny at least 2 of these developments. I'd also like to respond to a couple of points that were made by your staff planner. She said there's shopping in the area. There's a little bit of shopping, but really not a lot. The commercial properties on Fraser at the end of Durward are, there's a foam shop, and there's a daycare, and there's a martial arts studio. Further north on Fraser, there is a drugstore and a grocery store. But other than that, Fraser from 37th to King Edward, or not, sorry, to 28th is entirely commercial, entirely residential, I'm sorry. She also mentioned that the McBride School is below capacity. That's true if you consider the entire McBride complex. McBride Annex, which is quite close to the proposed development, has been turning away students for several years now. People who live on
Jonathan,
my street aren't able to get their kids.
Jonathan, I apologize.
Thank
You're
you.
at
I
time.
realize I've hit my 5 minutes. Thank
Great.
you.
Well, thank you very much for coming in today, Jonathan. Seeing no questions for you, I will move on to the next speaker. The next speaker is Julia Lockhart. Julia, are you on the phone?
My name is Julia Lockhart, and my pronouns are she, her, and I live about 3 blocks from this site, and I'm speaking in favor of the rezoning. I was a renter in Vancouver for many years before becoming lucky enough to be able to buy in 2021. And I've never been able to make the time to speak at one of these hearings before, and even tonight it's a bit of a struggle because it's a skating registration across the city of Vancouver tonight. But I wanted to make time to share my view that this is exactly the type of housing that Vancouver needs. Secure rental housing is so desperately needed. When I was renting, I was evicted when my kids were 8 months old because I was living not in a secure rental property. And when we moved, we were lucky enough to move into a laneway house that was purpose-built as a rental. And we were secure in that space, and there was a tremendous amount of comfort for my young family in that. As the mayor said earlier this month, we don't have a shadow crisis. We have a housing crisis, and it's true. Our neighborhood has lots of capacity, in my view, for more residents. I disagree that 33rd is slow moving or at capacity. I disagree that the schools are at capacity, and I would welcome the new neighbors. Denser neighborhoods can support and attract more services, which attract more people, which attract more services. It's a virtuous circle. And this building, and frankly, the 3 buildings that the speaker before me mentioned, are exactly what we need. And I have confidence that the issues around parking, drainage, traffic, shape, and size of the building can all be addressed. But homes for people, secure rentals are critical. And in my view, this project is a big win for that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Julia. Seeing no questions for you, I will move on to the next speaker. I hope I pronounced this correctly. Jonathan Debarat. Jonathan, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Mayor and Council, to speak on this development. I am a resident of Vancouver, and I live in the neighborhood about a block and a half away from the site. And I want to say I agree with the last caller on the aims here of addressing the housing crisis in this city. And I think that's a laudable goal, and I support it. But I don't think this necessarily has to be a situation where it's all or nothing. I think there's a way to balance density with the concerns of people in the neighborhood about traffic and parking and so on. And the main concerns I have in respect to this project are the size of the project relative to where it is, and the traffic and other kind of detrimental effects that will follow, in my view. In respect to the size, I'm a bit puzzled by this project being where it is. It's 5 stories, and it's in an area where it basically could be surrounded on all sides by single and two-story homes. There's really nothing else in that area that even comes close to that sort of height. So it's really going to stand out, in my view, aesthetically. It's going to be an eyesore. Even when you go onto Fraser, which is a much bigger street, you see projects that are 4 stories for the most part. And same with Main and 33rd. You see 4-story projects. So I'm just puzzled by this scale at that particular location. I think a 3-story, perhaps 4, would be a much better fit aesthetically for where the project is planned. But 5 stories, in my view, is just too big. The people who are living on Durward are going to be in complete their houses are going to be completely dwarfed by this project. It's going to look very strange in my view, and so there's that concern. And with the aesthetic concerns, there are also concerns about the capacity on 33rd. I share the views of the first speaker about 33rd. I'm not sure what the last caller, what their perspective is on 33rd, because as far as I can tell, it's absolutely jammed at rush hour. And I don't see how the vehicular traffic from this project is going to go anywhere but on the small streets that surround the project, like Prince Albert, 32nd, Durward, and St. Catharines. And my particular concern about that is the school, McBride Annex, is on St. Catharines and 32nd. And there are children, pedestrians that are, using the side streets to get to that location. And there's already a traffic issue along these side streets, and it's going to be exacerbated. I don't know what the plan is. I just heard for the first time that traffic is going to maybe be exiting from Durward. But they're going to inevitably, when they can't get onto 33rd because it's jammed, they're going to be trying to get to the arteries other ways. And so I'm in support of a project at this site. I was just disappointed that these issues that were raised by a lot of residents in the area haven't been addressed. There's no discussion in the conditions about traffic calming or stop signs or anything that might help improve that situation. I think there's an opportunity here to maybe have bike routes or something like that to encourage people to get out of their cars, but I just haven't seen any of that, and I'm really hopeful that those types of things will be thought about and discussed. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Seeing no questions for you, I'm going to move on to the next caller, Jonathan Horowitz. Jonathan, yep. Awesome. Great.
Awesome. Thank you all for coming and listening to me speak today. I'm in opposition of this project. I live on Durward on the 700 lot, which is just west of Prince Albert. And there's a lot of issues with the current concept that's happening on the site. So the first one is with regards to construction and how they're actually going to access the site during construction. There's only one way into there, as mentioned by a lot of people. There's no access on 33rd, and it'd be impossible to shut it down because of the single lanes. Living on Durward, the streets are already not perfect. They're on angles and torn up. And I'd love to know what the construction company expects to do when they tear up that street further and the sidewalks. Are they going to repair it? Or are they going to leave us with a giant mess, hoping that one day the city comes in and cleans it up for them? And there's been no discussion from their half on that. And as a result, that's kind of point one on how this is too rushed. The next big thing is safety on the street. We talked about the collisions with pedestrians and the fact that there's a school. One thing to note that's not in their documentation is that Prince Albert gets extremely slippery in the winter. When ice freezes over, cars do get stuck constantly right at the stop sign. There's 2 stop signs there. Cars get stuck, they have to be towed out, and it's extremely slippery for pedestrians. And so people that are driving into the building from Durward will have to take Prince Albert or St. Catharines, which is, for those who don't know, right next to the park. And cars will get stuck and slip. And again, there's no mention in their documentation of how they expect to deal with this. We know the city has an issue with icing, with snow removal. If it's not done by a private service by the building, we're going to have a lot of cars stuck, and it's something that we have to take very seriously because even today, we're having that happen. The next thing is about the value add. So we're getting a building. It's great. We get more people, and the density helps the city. But ultimately, there's no plans to have any store frontage there. And so when they talk about being in an area that's near different stores, I agree with the original speaker. There is no stores in the area. The closest coffee shop is a 12-minute walk on 28th and Fraser at JJ Beans. And there is a No Frills, but it's one grocery store and one Shoppers Drug Mart that services the entire southern Fraserville area. The other grocery stores are on Main Street, which is too far away, and we're going to be adding all these people. We need to have more amenities. So if a project like this is going to go forward, and it's going to be 5 stories and not 4 stories, we got to make sure with an agreement from the construction company that there's going to be store frontage that can actually add amenities to the area. Otherwise, to be honest, we kind of have to ask, what's the value add here? So we increase density, but we have all these other issues that City Hall is going to have to deal with. And I don't think you guys want to spend the budget and time to fix a private company's issue. We also don't want to be left with the upkeep. We want the community to thrive and want more people and families, but we don't want streets that are ripped up. And we do have concerns that the school is going to be flooded. We purchased the house to have a school down the street from us, as did most people. And if there aren't properly addressed plans and statistics for how it's going to be handled, we're going to have a really big mess on our hands. So I know the question period kind of was over for it, but things to, I guess, internally consider are, is there another option here that makes more sense? I know the current city council has put forward an idea for multiplexes in the community, like we have at Fraser in 26. Phenomenal idea. It would do very well here. It would ensure increased density without causing some of the major concerns, particularly with traffic and garbage. Can we add a first floor? Is that going to destroy their ROI, or is it something that they can incorporate the way that other buildings have? Are they able to add services like snow removal, de-icing, and a cleaning up of any damage to the roads and sidewalks? Can they commit to that before beginning the project? Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Oh, please don't leave. You actually have questions. Yeah.
Famous.
All right. Well, first we'll go to Councillor Klassen.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Jonathan. Just curious about, I know the 700 block of Durward. I think there's only sidewalks on the north side of the street.
Correct.
So you're talking about damage to the sidewalks. Can you just give me a little bit more of an explanation of what you think might happen there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you're going to have large construction crews coming in. They're going to rip up the street with some, well, I shouldn't say that. There's a potential that it messes up the street with the heavy trucks that are going to have to come through because they won't be able to use Prince Albert as an access point. They're just too large. In terms of the actual sidewalk, it's already discombobulated, I guess. And so there's concern that when they start to dig, it's going to cause some seismic, I don't know if that's the right term, but some grumblings in the ground that'll tear up the sidewalk further. So those are the big issues with regards to the road and the sidewalk.
Okay, thanks. And with regards to the amenities, we do have some commercial buildings that are on Fraser Street. I know because one of them is my dentist's office, but we don't really have a mixture of shops that would probably provide other services there. But there probably could be some change in tenanting there at some point, I would imagine. And because that's what I'm sort of wondering if having the services a little bit closer down by 28th Avenue and 29th, which are actually pretty close, would be quite suitable. And do you still think we need to have more commercial area, more storefronts around that area?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I do think we have to. Those current lots, like where the dentistry and chiropractor is situated, those are already tenanted. So it's kind of a fool's hope to think that they might just swap out for something that's useful for us. Oftentimes our commercial spaces, when they do get set up, they try and re-rent them out to the same capacity. So if the dental office leaves, we'll get another dentist or something similar and a medical practitioner. It's more about the general capacity in total when we think about the big needs of amenities. So we're talking about, I know we don't like gas stations in the city, but there's only one gas station. There's only one grocery store. There's only one side shop, like a Shoppers Drug Mart and medical shop, and the schools themselves. So I guess to answer your question, we can't expect that those dental and chiropractic shops will swap into something that we need. If we're going to add hundreds of people into the area, we need to be proactive and actually get a guarantee that we're going to have access to grocery stores, pharmacy, and medical shops.
Very good. Thanks. Thanks for your time.
Right.
Oh, don't leave. You have more questions. Thank you, Councillor Klassen. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thank you. Over here. I just had one quick clarification question. I know you're talking about commercial amenities in the area, but I just wanted to be explicit. Were you suggesting that it would be beneficial to have them actually on the lower floor of the building and not just have it be housing only?
Yes, on the first floor facing 33rd is a place where you could put commercial storefront. Kind of similar if you have a map up there now, where there's another building at Fraser and 33rd on the corner, and they have like a Montessori school, and it's a similar idea. It's on a hill. The back is the garbage lot, but in the front that faces Fraser has commercial space. And so that would be similar, except you would turn it so that the commercial space would be on 33rd on the first floor, 4 floors of residential above it, and then the slope backwards would be entrance into the garage.
Okay, because you feel that would add some human scale shops and amenities into the neighborhood, and that would at least be a net positive.
Absolutely, 100%.
That's clear. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And Jonathan, thank you for coming on in today. The next person we have is Andrew Russell on the phone. Andrew, are you there?
Unfortunately, that caller has been disconnected.
Okay, well, I'll circle back with Andrew. Hopefully, he can make it back on. The next person we have on the line is Mark Chilvers. Mark, are you on the line?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Sim, and councillors for the opportunity to address council tonight. My thoughts, firstly, I was a little concerned that some of my comments, which I actually submitted to council prior to the meeting a day or two ago, haven't been recorded in the receipt of the comments, and certainly from one of my neighbours as well. So I just wanted to flag that as a point of process. But with regard to the development on East 33rd, I'm concerned and in opposition of the proposed 5-storey building. Similar to many of the other speakers this evening, I believe that the 5-storey development doesn't fit within in the area, but also due to the congestion that it will create on East 33rd. At rush hour now, from in the mornings going into the city, traffic is stretching from Main Street through to Fraser Street, and on return at the end of the day, it is from Knight Street through to Fraser Street, with significant congestion and pollution to the environment. We have a preschool and elementary school in close proximity to this, and the impact of environmental air pollution on children's health is a significant concern. I'm a pediatric respirologist at BC Children's Hospital, and we're seeing an increase in asthma in children as over the last few years, and children are dying from asthma. And I do worry, and there is data from UBC supporting that environmental pollution is contributing to the rise in respiratory conditions, not just in children, but in the elderly population with obstructive lung disease. When I don't drive, I walk to work. And when I walk through the areas, I look at the developments, and I see that if you look at East 33rd from Fraser all the way through to Kingsway, the developments that have come in place have been townhouses, 2 or 3 level townhouses. I'm not in opposition to affordable rental properties, and I think it's important that we have that for the city, but I'm concerned with the size of the building, and I think either townhouses or 3-storey development would be appropriate for this. And finally, the other concern that I have, when you look at Alabaster Homes' website, they're already advertising a 5-storey development on East 33rd for expressions of interest. And I'm concerned that this is already a done deal. And so that this is one of the reasons I want to voice my concern and opinion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark, for calling on in. Seeing no questions for you, I will move on to our next speaker. The next person on the line is Dr. Jennifer Kong. Jennifer, are you there?
Yes,
Dr.
I am.
Kong? Great. Please feel free to speak.
I live on Durward Avenue across the proposed site. I have 4 major points to make. First one, I want to highlight in the notes that I believe this of the rezoning applications for RR2B. Is that correct? I haven't been able to see anything in previous council minutes. So what we decide here will affect many neighborhoods in future with respects to this expedited process. I share my feeling with Dr. Chilvers before me. I had sent feedback to the email, and I don't see that in the collated responses for opposition, so I'm just wondering where it went. I even sent one directly to Mr. Klassen, who lives in our neighborhood. So I would like to summarize the extent of that email communications. Is there something in City Hall, there's an oversight for multiple rezoning applications within an actual neighborhood? The reason why I ask this is because on the neighborhood bordering between Fraser and Knight, King, Edward, and 33rd, is actually another major development that has gotten approval last year, that being on 4408 to 4488 Fraser Street, as well as 707 to 709 East 29th, which has been approved already for over 120 units, in which down the ground floor, which I found interesting how Mr. Klassen had brought it up, in which that's a commercial area where you could have more businesses, which addressed one of our speakers' questions, but it's also adding another over 100 units there. And with respects to the demand on the local services, for example, the school, yes, one application would be able for the school to accommodate. But if you have more than one application in the same neighborhood, that data can't correlate. It can't follow because it's already been spoken for by the first application. I'd also like to point out this application that I'm speaking of is still within proverbial rock's throw, if you will, from another application on Knight Street and East 29th. And, of course, the very large one on King Edward and Knight Street. So when you fill up the schools, for example, in the McBride catchment, because of the first development, where would they go? They would try to go to a neighboring catchment. For example, the one across from Knight Street, the annex, I believe it's Tecumseh and Lord Selkirk. They'll be filled up by those large developments. So with respects to an overall oversight of multiple developments, I'd like City Council to consider creating some kind of, I don't know, I guess committee is the right word, to make sure they're not overtaxing one exact neighborhood. A third point I want to bring up with respect to Hassan's comment about renting the current residences that they have purchased. I believe 2 days ago, the one on the corner of Prince Albert and East 33rd was being boarded up, like wood panels on the actual windows and doors. But that was 2 days ago when I walked by. And then the last comment I would like to make is the amount of support on the documentation on today's agenda. There says there's 20 people support versus 22 in opposition. And as I mentioned, I believe there's some opposition documents that are missing. Of the 20 that are there, I don't know if anyone's looked at the names associated with it, but 5 of the support people are on the staff of Alabaster, which is about a quarter, I believe, of their staff, according to one of their pictures at a staff meeting. And 4 of them are from real estate developers or monies associated with real estate development. If you remove 9 of those supports, you now have only 11 people supporting compared to the 22 opposed. So I don't know if this is special for just us and our special rezoning, but I don't know if the future rezoning applications, people who may be looking at this minutes and that stuff, would want to do a little bit of homework to see who actually supports a development, whether it's actually people in the neighborhood or is it the people who will financially gain from this approval. Thank you for your time and would love to hear any questions.
Thank you very much for calling in, Dr. Kong. Seeing no questions for you.
Really?
Yeah, really. Thank you very much for calling in and taking the time to call in and giving us your thoughtful comments. If there are any other speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Clerk, do we have any? We have another call. Oh, great. Thank you. Andrew Russell, we found you. No, he just disconnected. You know what? We still have another at least 5 minutes here, so let's try to get him back online. So I'll go through this again. Oh, sorry. Do we have any other speakers besides Andrew? Maybe.
We have no other speakers on the line at this time.
Okay. So I'll read this for a second time. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Were we able to get Andrew on the line again? Or anyone?
There are no speakers on the line at this time.
Okay. Third and final call. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 # before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. At this time, we will take a 5-minute recess to give people a chance to call in, and hopefully we get a hold of Russell. Andrew Russell. phone. So the next speaker is Michael Lightstone. Michael, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Please go ahead.
First thing, I raised my objection last week, both online and in email, and then again this week. But as far as I can tell, my objection was never raised. So that is a bit concerning. But I'll go on from here. Further to what Jonathan was talking about safety, it triggered a few things in my head. One thing that hasn't been mentioned is, the intersection at Fraser and Prince Albert is probably not one of the safest, as I've witnessed a number of car accidents there. And so I am a bit concerned about what could even be done, because traffic calming measures like a traffic light or a stop sign is not the answer, given the proximity of what's already there in place. And then his mention of the winter driving on Prince Albert, that is something I hadn't thought about, and it's a really good point. About maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, I reported to the city when a truck took out the stop sign there because it was fully out of control. During that same time period, city trucks were not able to stop at the stop sign, because if they did, they would be stuck at the intersection. And I witnessed a number of city trucks just blowing through at full speed or even faster than full speed, because otherwise they would not be able to get through the intersection. So it's clear to me, and I didn't even think about it at that point, but it's clear to me that this is not the intersection for mass intensification. And then on that point, in the last presentation about the other residential application, this is not that. This is not near appropriate shopping. This is not near proper transportation. This is not on a road that can handle the size of intensification that we're talking about. It's single lane. I think the term that was used was a secondary arterial road. It's not that. So all the arguments that were used for that, this is not that. Another thing that was discussed was the amount of 2 bedrooms or greater, which is definitely a need for this area. But the zoning only requires 35%. So if it's going to be more, then it should be required now. And I don't understand why it's limited to 35%, because that would be a real shame. There was a mention about the parking. I don't think the parking ratio is appropriate given the lack of parking in the area, and certainly a higher parking ratio would be appropriate. And I don't understand why some of these studies are being pushed to a later date, when the public essentially loses their ability to properly object. I mean, the traffic, the safety, the shadow, shadow study has not even been required. I mean, all these things should be done as part of this process, not pushed to a later date. And that's pretty much a summary of what I have to say.
Great, Michael. Thank you very much for calling on. And seeing no questions for you, I'm going to move on to Blair Smith. Blair, are you on the line?
I am on the line, yes. Hello, Council and Mayor. Thank you for hearing me speak. I know it is kind of a late night already for you folks. Just calling in support of this project, and I do live in Vancouver because I know that's the question you were about to ask. I just wanted to call in and just in support of this project and this new secure rental program in general. I think it's something that our city desperately needs. As part of the traffic that everyone seems to really care about on 33rd, coming from the far east side of Vancouver to the west side where I work, living a little bit closer would actually alleviate some of this traffic that they're talking about, either when I take the bus on the 33 or the 25, which they also have pointed out, do need a lot more service, but that can't come unless we have density to ride the bus. They're not going to increase buses if there isn't density in the area. But this site seems to be the perfect location for this. 33rd is what I would classify as an arterial. I think that is a correct designation. I'm not someone who, there's accusations of everyone in support of this work for the industry and the developer, whatever they said. But I don't do that. I don't work for that. I think it's just regular people. I have conversations at work all the time about people who are commuting from, Burnaby, Surrey. They just keep getting pushed further and further out because of rental prices. But I think the best thing the city can do is start building these rentals in all neighborhoods of the city, whether that be Point Grey, whether that be here at 33rd, whether that be, in East Van. We just need more rentals and more buildings for people to live in. Finally, I think it's something that some of the concerns about traffic, things like that, this building does have some parking spots because the reality is a lot of people do drive to work. I think that's something that can be solved by increasing transit in the area, increasing active transportation. But that has nothing to do with this specific building. That's something the city can do as part of its transportation policies. And it shouldn't restrict the rezoning of this lot just because, the city hasn't done those yet. And I think that's something that I know you all care about and that you, as council, will consider as this area does start to see these rental projects and other projects kind of take shape. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I think it's really important that we start to build these projects, and I hope that you vote yes on this project. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Blair. Clerk, were we able to get Andrew Russell back on the line? Has he?
No, there are no further speakers on the line.
Okay. Seeing that there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. Sorry. Okay, as few or no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. today, I suggest we now close the receipt of public comments and move on to hearing closing comments, asking further questions of team members, and to make a decision. Does the applicant have any closing comments?
No further comments other than to thank Mayor and Council for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do our team members have any closing comments?
No comments, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yep. Okay, so does council have any questions for team members? And yes, we do. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, I know I can't ask this question of the applicants now, but I'm wondering if staff could comment on the feedback around the consideration around retail at ground grade level, because that was raised by a couple of speakers, and consideration for that to add amenities within the neighborhood.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor. So the zone that this site is proposed to be rezoned to, our R2B, does not allow for non-residential uses. The secured rental policy does allow for consideration of applications to districts that do require non-residential components. However, it's not a requirement in this type of location for that to be a component of the project. And so the applicant has proceeded with a decision to rezone to a 100% residential district here. So it would require an entirely new rezoning application to contemplate a mixed-use project.
Okay, so it would be permitted, but it's not required, and it's not part of this application. So if there was an interest in making a change, then they would have to put in a new application to the city to accommodate that kind of change. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, thank goodness, because it's late. Okay, I appreciate that. And so there wouldn't be any further change if this is approved. It would go ahead with 100% residential.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I appreciate that. I see there's others on the queue for questions, so I'll pause there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dominato. Councillor Clausen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to staff, wanted to Some questions about essentially disruption during construction on that Durwood, St. Catharines, Prince Albert access. What kind of things do we typically do to try and mitigate, heavy vehicles coming through there, just to make sure that there is a school zone right across just at the end of the block there. So just want to make sure that that good consideration is being given to any kind of disruption that would follow from the movement of large vehicles and more traffic for construction.
The construction would be after the rezoning, but pre-construction, the applicants must meet with engineering staff to coordinate the construction and use of street as well. Permits are required to secure street space and any other closures.
There was a question. I drive the block that's been talked about, Prince Albert at the 33rd, regularly. I haven't had any problems with it, but there is a slight pitch in the street going up to 33rd. Is there something that we would want to just keep an eye on there, or a way for us for the city to perhaps mitigate if we do get winter conditions that cause some slippery conditions there? I mean, I'm assuming we can, but I just wanted to flag that.
Engineering conditions didn't address anything about slope. They did identify street improvements and frontage improvements, but I did not see anything specifically about slope.
Okay. Right. Thanks very much. That's
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Clausen. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, two quick questions. Just following up on Councillor Dominato, because I know that there is Council's previous direction to enable corner stores in all neighborhoods, and that's also incorporating the Vancouver plan. But are we in a situation here where, because that we're not at an OCP or that hasn't been advanced into zoning, that we wouldn't see that? Is that why the SRP is where it is? I'm just trying to tie those pieces together just from a policy perspective.
Teresa can speak to the Vancouver plan aspect of that, but I would say that the secured rental policy is, of course, first and foremost a policy that's intended to incentivize the delivery of new secured purpose-built rental housing. And so while we've tried to include opportunities to allow consideration of mixed-use proposals where appropriate, and actually to direct the delivery of mixed use and allow for introduction of new non-residential uses, including commercial uses, local serving retail being an option within that, of course, in certain locations. But we've tried to be judicious about where we would actually look at requiring that and otherwise provided flexibility to entertain that, especially on arterial locations.
So can I just follow up on that? Because I appreciate that, but just to build on that a little bit, you're being judicious in where you would require it, but could you require it specifically with the SRP, or does the SRP not allow that requirement? Like, is that a suggestion? I'm just trying to synthesize those pieces together.
Yeah, good question. So the secure rental policy does require projects to be mixed use in certain types of locations, specifically sites that are immediately adjacent to a site with existing mixed use or commercial zoning. For example, a site with C2 zoning on a block that may have existing RS or RT zone parcels. The policy would direct that the proposal would be mixed use in order to complete the block with that non-residential commercial retail frontage. In locations such as the application before us tonight, where it is on an arterial, however, it's not immediately adjacent to existing commercial zoning, the policy supports the option. So there are cases where it would be a requirement. This location, however, is not one of them.
Okay, so that's always one of these situations where it helps us to think about how we want that policy to roll in future, but that's the policy as it is right now. Okay, and then I did hear you correctly, just recapping that it is the applicant's responsibility to restore the sidewalk, correct?
Ask Kellen to address that.
So engineering conditions specifically require upgrades on all three street frontages for this site. That's including new sidewalks and street trees where required. I'm not sure if that's answering your question or whether it's about
it does, and will it be any wider? Is there any benefit? Is it just restoring It'll be new, but is it wider than what's there, or is it, other than it being sort of fresh and new, is there any additional benefit? Is it wider?
Currently, there's no sidewalks on Durward and on Prince Edward, Albert. So those are new, and on 33rd, those would be wider sidewalks as well.
Okay, so it'll be an improvement sidewalk where it wasn't there, and wider and
Yes.
safer. Okay.
In addition to those, in terms of safety, lighting has to be upgraded, full intersection lights at 33rd and Durward as well on Prince Albert.
Okay, thank you for the recap. That's helpful for everybody. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I've got a sort of a different perspective on the questions I want to ask. We had a number of speakers who talked about other alternative kinds of housing forms that they felt might be more appropriate, townhomes and that kind of thing. The authority for this application, I know, is the first one that's listed in our report is the Vancouver plan. I wonder if staff, if you can talk to the genesis of putting not just townhouses in single-family neighborhoods, but this kind of housing form and rental into this neighborhood. What do you reference in the Vancouver plan as giving direction to do this? And what kind of public support was there in the consultations through the Vancouver plan to move in this direction, which is a new direction citywide?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Carr. This is Teresa O'Donnell, the General Manager. We got very wide, very strong support for all forms of missing middle in these low-density neighborhoods, particularly the ones that are amenity-rich and don't have rental opportunities now. That we got through all of our different, I'm sorry I don't have those numbers off the top of my head tonight, but through all of our different kind of touch points, whether it was in-person sessions or online or in the workshops, we got lots and lots, huge majorities, like 80% of the respondents wanted to see more options available in these low-density neighborhoods. So strong support for all forms of missing middle.
And so that is the public support that drove this policy that enabled this application.
Yes.
Am I getting that right?
Yes,
okay.
That's correct.
Okay, that's my only question. Thanks, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Carr. Seeing no other questions, Council will now make a decision on this application. Do we have a mover for the recommendation? Oh, do I see Councillor Claassen? Oh, thank you very much, Councillor Claassen. Seconder, is that Councillor Joe? Yep, thank you very much. Is there any debate? Oh, sorry. I'm gonna have to move people to the main queue. And so Councillor Claassen and Councillor Carr, I believe. Yes, thank you. Councillor Claassen, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mayor. So what we are seeing here is potentially in a bold move, given that this is the first time that we've seen this typology in this area on this sort of secondary arterial. It's been pointed out that there are no buildings like this between Kingsway and Fraser Street. The closest one you'll see is probably as you get towards Main Street past the cemetery. I think this building is the right way to go with this block, simply because of the wide lots and the fact that it has both the street access on either side. There have been some concerns raised about traffic. The 33rd bus is a relatively new route. I think it's probably 10, 12 years old overall. It has been an important way to increase the availability of transit. One of the busiest bus routes in the city is the number 8 bus on Fraser Street, a block away. We have a burgeoning and growing commercial area, probably about a half a kilometer away from this site, which is certainly within sort of walking distance or is close enough. And I would imagine we'll start to see with developments like this, we'll probably start to see some shift and change. I'm starting to see more land sales happening along Fraser Street, and I think there is a long-term sense that you're going to see more contiguous commercial and shopping in that strip of the city. Grace Park, which is again just a half block away from this site, is a very popular gathering place for the community. It's just recently had some of the land remediated. It's had an old building removed. It formerly had a dog park there. It certainly might be a great place for one to come again someday. The school, which is at the end of the block, I think we do need to have some ways of addressing and mitigating any traffic, especially during construction when you have large trucks and you've got children walking along the streets or walking to school. We just have to make sure that we have measures in place to make sure that everybody remains safe. But unfortunately, what we in McBride is a K-3 school, so it has been at full. But the main school, the Richard McBride School, a little bit further east, usually has been always been under subscribed in terms of the number of students. So, and unfortunately, the truth is that a lot of the traffic that comes in around schools is from parents and taking their kids to and from school. But anyway, I think this is certainly I think the beginning of what we're going to see as a trend here, having rent. Just looking at today's national rental report, 10% annual increase in the price of rents across Canada, and 23% in Vancouver. So we are very quickly going to be outpricing people's ability to afford housing. So it's really important that we get that supply on stream, and then we get projects to the construction and then occupancy phase as quickly as possible. But I do think it is the neighborhood is being asked to try take a little bit of a leap of faith with the new building typology. But knowing what I know about that area and that street, I think it will integrate very well once it's fully constructed and provided there is work done to address some of the traffic concerns around the building. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Clausen. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just want to first of all thank the speakers who came to speak and acknowledge the concerns that they raised. And I understand, it's change in a neighborhood is exceedingly difficult for many. But I want to harken back to the question that I asked staff. And Teresa O'Donnell answered, which is really around what drives this policy change that enables an application like this to come forward. The Vancouver plan had the largest number of people participating in it over the last number of years, and literally thousands and thousands of people indicated a primary goal and desire to see the city of Vancouver in all its neighborhoods, in all parts of the city, be a more welcoming place where they could live, so that every neighborhood would add into it, different forms of housing than we currently see, that would be affordable, that would enable them, their families, to be able to thrive in those neighborhoods too. So that's really what's driving the policy that is driving the ability to accept an application of this sort into the neighborhood. And change is hard. That I also will admit. Change for many neighborhoods is going to be hard, but it's a sort of a necessary part of the evolution of Vancouver, directed by the people of Vancouver, who, as I say, in the tens of thousands participated in the Vancouver plan. That sets the stage for this. So I'm You know, I know that people said, well, why can't we have townhomes? Why can't we have sort of a little bit more density? But what people really requested through the Vancouver plan is rental housing, is affordable rental housing. And you can't get that on a townhouse development. It's about going a little higher. This is not anywhere near the kind of density that we're seeing in other in other parts of the city, but I think it does give an opportunity for people to be able, who may not now be able to live in this neighborhood, to be able to live there.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Carr, seeing no other comments, let's put this to a vote. Okay, the vote is unanimously in favor of the recommendation, so it passes. Thank you very much, everyone, to the team and all the speakers that took the time and effort to come out here today. We really appreciate it. Can we please have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Joe, seconded by Councillor Meisner. I'm sorry, Mike. Councillor Klassen. All in favor, say yay. Okay. All
Yay.
opposed, say nay. Great. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yep.